All right.
Chapter 31.
Chapter 31.
Now Jacob heard the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, The spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, The striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of the Lord said to me in a dream, Jacob? And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up your eyes and see, all the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen what Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there any portion of or inheritance left for us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to do, you do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban, 2 pages. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. When it was told to Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but could not find them. And she said to her father, Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods.
Okay, let's pause there for a minute. As this chapter began, it makes reference that the daughters were living with Laban. That, they were married to Jacob, but they were living with Laban. And that was not an unknown custom in Hebraic history. The interesting thing is, when we in our marriage vows, we read that passage that says a woman shall leave her family and be joined with the man, the two will be one. That's not what was happening back here. That the girls still stayed at home. And so that's why, when they're talking here, the daughters stole, Rachel in particular, stole the household god, or gods. So that says Laban was not worshiping the God of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
He had those little household gods. And his daughter, even though she was betrothed to Jacob, she wanted to take the gods with her, put them in the saddlebag.
She was married to him.
Well, she was married to him, and she wanted to take them. So,
Yeah, she took them.
Yeah, she took them.
But Jacob didn't know.
No. And when Laban came in, searched the tent, she sat on the saddle. And then she said, well, I can't get up because I'm in a woman's way. And this is probably the first example in Scripture where a woman said, I'm not doing anything because I'm in a woman's way. And so this family dynamic that's going on, remember Laban had promised Jacob a lot of stuff. And, Jacob was going to take the spotted sheep or the striped sheep. And, and Laban wasn't happy with that. He made an agreement. He couldn't live up to it or wouldn't live up to it. So.
Did you find it interesting that the animals were both striped and spotted and,
Yeah.
Oh, they were the blemished.
Yeah. And, but also the cattle, they turned the cattle loose.
How about the hogs?
They were waiting for some people from the barbecue to come and pick them up. So here we have this family dynamic that we really haven't seen before, because we've got somebody who was outside the circle of Yahweh, goes off and he gets betrothed to these two girls, and then you've got Laban and the way he handles it. So it's in some ways there's a bit of humor here. I mean, it's kind of in some ways like the Hatfields and McCoys.
Okay.
So let's go on from 36.
Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was, the day the heat consumed me, by day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night.
Okay, well, let's stop for just a minute. You notice that in 38, it starts off, these 20 years I have been with you. And verse 41 starts off, these 20 years I have been in your house. The Yahwist and the Elohist are telling the story from their point of view.
Mhm.
So the Yahwist starts off, and he's talking about the beast had been taken, and he couldn't sleep. But the Elohist is talking about the God of Abraham and Isaac, and that reminds me, I almost purposely was late today because I was watching the news, and there was an article that they've now said the CIA was involved in the search for the Ark of the Covenant. And I thought to myself, well, it's in a warehouse in D.C. But apparently, they're still, they got the CIA, rather than catching spies, they're looking for the Ark of the Covenant. So I didn't hear the whole story. So did you hear something about that?
The end of the story said, with all this searching, they have found nothing.
So
It's unbelievable that under that pyramid, it's a mile deep.
yes,
Now, how could they build that? I mean, that's a long way down there.
Yeah.
We can't fathom that they would, with what they had available.
We don't know what they have available.
it's like the Etruscans who resided in Italy, and when the invaders came in, they built cities under the cities and carved out stone. I mean, and we don't know whatever happened to the Etruscans. Same thing with the Native Americans who lived out at Mesa Verde. They carved all those things out of cliffs. We don't know what tribe that was. They just disappeared.
Mhm.
So,
I can tell you where the Ark of the Covenant is, though.
it's in a warehouse in DC.
No, it's The Mystery of
Oh,
The Curse of Oak Island. If you watch that series on
yeah.
the History Channel, they're going to find it.
It's the digging a mile down underground is amazing, but so is building those pyramids. I mean, I posted a picture on Facebook. It showed one of the stones for the pyramids, and at the edge of the stone it said IKEA. So maybe the Egyptians ordered them from IKEA and stacked them up.
They had some technology we don't understand. Somebody did.
Well, and if you look at how the drug dealers are building tunnels
Yeah.
underground to traffic drugs, and the people over in they're not Palestinians, but
Hamas over there.
Hamas, the tunnels that they have. I mean, I don't know how they do that. I just remember in one of the war movies where the prisoners of war, The Great Escape, they were digging tunnels. Well, the problem was they didn't know how to get rid of the dirt. So they put the dirt in prisoners' pants, and they would walk out in the yard and untie them and then kind of kick the dirt out of their pants. So anyway,
It's unreal.
yeah, what man can do.
Vietnam also had the tunnels,
Yes.
and they have what they call tunnel rats.
Hmm.
The Americans had to go in those tunnels to see where they're occupied and so forth. Now, they didn't pick the big guys, they picked the small guys because they would fit in that tunnel. And they could turn around and get out of there quicker than a bigger person.
Yeah.
So it had to be by size, it had to be well trained. It's a job you and I wouldn't want.
No.
The Japanese did that all through the Pacific Islands and Okinawa and everywhere else.
Yeah. I went to seminary with the tunnel rat from Vietnam.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was the shortest guy in our class.
Was he his
Just
stature? Was he?
just a little tiny guy,
Yeah.
but he was tough.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if I were going to get into a bar fight, he'd have been my first choice to take with me, because you can't be a wuss
No.
and go in those tunnels. And he didn't share a lot of stories about it, because they did some stuff down there. I mean, they were shooting our guys were shooting their guys. So
Meanwhile, back to the
back to in those 20 years, we're down to 43.
Yes. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar Sahadutha. This heap is a witness between, but Jacob called it Galeed. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." Therefore he named it Galeed and Mizpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me."
Okay, let's stop there for just a minute. We got, here we have Jacob. They're gathering stones. Now this is Elois talking. The Yahwist, which preceded this, Laban says, "My daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine." Well, Jacob married those girls. But see, Laban is still saying, they're mine. You may be married to them, but they're mine. So then the Yahwist writes, "And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones, and they made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it,"
Jegar Sahadutha.
thank you, but Jacob called it Galeed. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Galeed.
Galeed. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me to this day." Therefore he named it Galeed. So here we have the Elois giving us one facet of the stone, and then we've got the Yahwist giving us a different one. And the pillar, mitzvah, for he said, "The Lord watch between you and me when we are absent from one another."
It's used as
That's a prayer.
a prayer when you're leaving somebody.
Right.
Lord walk between you and me when you're gone from one another.
And, that doesn't sound like these two guys who were having a dispute. I'm not sure, I'm not sure they wouldn't want to say, "The Lord strike you between you and me." But there is still a family relationship. And that comes from the Elois writing. Then we're going to go back to the Yahwist with verse 51.
Then Laban said to Jacob, "See this heap and the pillar which I have set up between you and me? This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me, to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home.
Okay. Now, you notice there's a
That was a long
discrepancy.
chapter.
Pardon?
That was a long chapter.
Yes, but there's a discrepancy in the story. It says Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. Or actually in 43 it says, so Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar, and Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather the stone. In 51 it says, then Laban said to Jacob, see this heap of the pillar which I have set between you and me.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to take credit.
Yeah.
So you've got the Yahwist and the Elohist debating who really should take credit for that stone. And that's how many of these places get named in Scripture. You know, it's like that area where Lot's wife turned around and turned into a pillar of salt.
Sodom
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Gomorrah.
the Sodom and Gomorrah stuff. So that pillar of salt, there must have been some kind of mountain or hill that was salty. And they said, that's what happened to Lot's wife. So they assigned biblical significance to ordinary things. We don't do that anymore. You know, it's just the way people think, how they thought then, and how they think now. And so, you know, the God of Abraham in 53, you know, Laban is saying, the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. So the God of Nahor is the false God.
Nahor is Abraham's cousin, I think.
Yeah, he's part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it says, so Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, the word fear, does anybody use a different name for that or a different word for that?
What verse you on that for fear?
53.
Mine says fear.
Yeah, 53, verse 53. See,
The word fear is capitalized.
yes.
Because it represents God.
Well, mine isn't.
Yeah, the New International and the Message both use swearing by the fear, the God of his father Isaac.
Stan says his says judge.
Is it on 53?
53, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when we read fear, it's not ooh, it's
It's good. Yeah.
it's acknowledging that God is being represented by Isaac, the God of Isaac. And it's kind of like we talked about here a couple weeks ago. I forgot what the word was now, but you know, remember?
We talked about fear, and then in some ways it was awe.
Yeah, the awe of
Respect and awe as opposed to
yeah. It's
Don't hit me again.
yeah. Fear the Lord doesn't mean tremble. It means hold the Lord in awe. And so that's and that's why fear is capitalized. But you know, I can't believe that the Message used the word fear again, because they try to dumb this down for people like me. But
Well, mine's kind of it's what is it? Okay, God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us, and then it talks about Jacob took the oath by the fear of his father Isaac.
you know, by respect of that,
Of God. Of the God of
the
Isaac.
God of Isaac.
Yeah.
And the God of Isaac was, guess what? The God of Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Same God. So, well, let's jump into 32.
Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord, in order that I may find favor in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 groups, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape.
Okay, let's stop for just a minute.
It's a good thing
What's-
they didn't have guns.
Yes. Now,
Where did they do those communication? They had cell phones or?
I don't know. It may be that just messengers. Yeah, and that's where we get that "don't kill the messenger." Let's reflect back on what is the relationship between Jacob and Esau.
It's
Brothers.
not
They're
good.
brothers, and Jacob tricked Esau of his birthright and a blessing.
Yes, and Esau was sent away.
Jacob was sent away, and Esau went, married Canaanites,
Yes,
and they hated each other.
they hated each other. Remember, Jacob's mother,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
She was terrible.
Rebecca,
Yeah, she had him go out and kill a lamb, and then put the fur on him. So when the father reached out, he could feel that, because Esau was a hairy little guy, and they could feel that hair. And
Did he not smell? I think a dead skin on me would stink.
well, I got to tell you,
Everything's stinking around place anyways.
yeah, I think they all stank. I don't hear a lot of references to showers and baths. I
and they
mean,
didn't have deodorant either.
Yeah, I agree with you.
so
That's
Yeah.
why they used perfume to cover up the smell.
Did the men use perfume?
Some of them.
they used Old Spice. It was more masculine. But people had to use smelly stuff to cover the odor. I mean, the odor would just be horrendous.
And they
Well-
couldn't wash their clothes very often either. So
Well, yeah, I mean, they couldn't bathe, so if they couldn't bathe, they couldn't wash their clothes. And they lived with the animals.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's if Sam goes out in the rain, she comes in and she smells like a wet dog. I mean, it's just, there's no way you can avoid an animal picking up.
So you get the same issue that Harold did last night when the thunder clapped?
Now, Sam, thankfully, is losing her hearing and her eyesight. So she never budged. She used to jump in bed with us when a thunderstorm happened, and she'd lay there quivering. But now she never even left her crate.
Oh, dear.
So there is a blessing to them.
How's she doing?
She's doing pretty good. We think we've taken care of the intestinal stuff, and but we still got to look forward to the crossing the Rainbow Bridge.
You know, that eyesight thing is just predominant throughout because, you're in the desert
Yeah,
and your eyes are getting accustomed to it, but they would use saliva to wash their eyes. And that probably wasn't the best thing to do, but you wanted some fresh water to
yeah.
clean your eyes out.
Make
Yeah.
sunglasses.
Well, they might have had
Do
something
you
to,
think?
well, that's
To-
why they wore the head things and had their mouth and
Yeah.
nose covered was to keep the dust out. And the headpieces had a piece that hung down over the forehead,
Oh,
which would have partially shaded the eyes.
there was various things like shade things.
Mhm.
When I was in North Africa, they had, when they went out to the desert now, we spent most of the time in town, but I guess I call it town.
Well, the hats that the Foreign Legion wore had the long
Yeah,
thing in the back
for their
to
neck.
keep you from getting neck sunburned.
So it's kind of interesting what they did
Yeah, yeah.
have available.
People adjust to their environment,
Yeah.
and they may have been uneducated, but they're not ill-formed. I mean, they still are kind of smart. So, okay. Well, I just want to clarify. Everybody knew that Esau was probably not looking forward to a happy family reunion
No.
with his tricky brother.
And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. Then he handed it over to his servants. These he handed over to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me, and put a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau, and moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third and all who follow the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he thought, I may appease him with a present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the day has broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. Then he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh.
Okay. So, who was Jacob arguing with or wrestling with?
God.
God.
That is an Elohis or a Yahwist story. That the Yahwist was probably trying to explain why Jacob had a limp. The Elohis is the one who is setting up the servants taking the 3 herds of animals to get Jacob in there peacefully. And the Yahwist is giving us something that's a little bit more dramatic. You know, this wrestling with God. And Jacob given a new name, Israel.
Who else in the Bible had a bad hit because of he wrestled with somebody? Was that he was trying to go up the ladder to heaven? Didn't he have a bad hit?
Is that Jacob's ladder?
I don't know. Am I making this up?
No.
Well, as we talk about that, I'm thinking of in Judges it was Samson and Delilah.
Yeah.
Because she cut his hair, and I think the guards came in and they beat up on Samson a little bit.
Well, they took Samson to the temple and tied him up.
Yeah. And Samson, Delilah, they were married, but she lived with her father even after they were married.
And she betrayed Samson.
Yes. So that story of betrayal is throughout the Old Testament.
I think we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's why, you know, when Peter denies Christ and he hears the cock crow, that's a story of betrayal. Judas is a story of betrayal. I mean, all of those stories, you know, the friends he takes with him when he goes to the garden to pray, and he comes back and he says, what? You can't stay awake a few minutes while I go off and pray? That's betrayal. And it goes all the way back, you know, Jacob and Esau. You know, that's a story of betrayal.
All the way back to Adam and Eve. That was
Yes,
betrayal.
that was betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I guess I could say my back hurts because I wrestled with the Lord. But I think it's interesting because I remember, I think it was when I was doing the church in Anthony among the other three, somebody said, how come all of a sudden we got a guy named Israel? Well, it's because he wrestled with God and God changed his name. I think it's interesting that the Israelites to this day do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh on the sinew of the hip.
Sinew.
Sinew. I mean, and
Well, it's kind of stringy, tough meat anyway.
yeah.
It would probably be a tendon or a ligament,
Yeah,
and you don't normally eat those
yeah,
anyway.
more than likely a tendon. And
Kind of should.
but it's interesting. Why don't they eat it? Because of the story with Jacob or Israel. Now, they aren't into cannibalism. So what are we talking about? On the cow.
Okay.
They don't eat that. Or the sheep. Yeah, you know,
Or the hog.
they avoid that. Yeah, or a hog. And they don't barbecue well, so. Yes, Charles.
Okay, mine is at verse 33. I'm just going to read the last little bit. Because he has struck Jacob's hip socket at the sciatic muscle.
Oh,
It's SCIATIC.
Yeah, sciatic.
Sciatic.
So that's why occasionally get this pain down her leg, huh?
yeah. Yeah, it's a sciatic nerve that's
Yeah.
in the bottom of the spine.
How interesting.
There's
L4.
something else in here. In verse 30, he names the place Peniel, Pniel, and El is God.
Mm-hmm.
And then in verse 31 is Penuel.
Penu and
Peniel.
Peni.
It's my Bible says Penuel is a variant spelling of Peniel. But when I've read that in church, when I've been lector, that always catches me. That it's two different names, but it's the same place.
Yeah. I may have to look at the commentary and see if that stands out. I've not really noticed that before.
I have a footnote like that too.
Do you? I know the EL is God,
Yeah,
but the PENU and the PENI, maybe present tense or past tense.
My Bible says Peniel means the face of God.
What verse is that, Kathy?
31.
30 and 31. Peniel, my Bible says, means the face of God. So Penny would be face, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Penu would be a different form of face.
Or maybe the scribe just got an extra letter.
I've got to go, so.
Okay,
All right. See you next week.
take care.
Okay, we'll pick up with 33
Yeah.
next time.